All set, guys?
Yep, we're on.
Good evening. Welcome to the August 23rd, 2022 Murrysville Planning Commission meeting. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Patty, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Lemke?
Here.
Ms. Hoy?
Here.
Mr. Midal?
Here.
Mr. Patrick? Olszewski? Mr. Kearns?
Here.
Mr. Levecki?
Here.
Okay, first item on the agenda is to authorize for a public hearing on a request for Fishione Enterprises to rezone 54.6 acres on Westertown Road and Hilty Road. This is from RR Rural Residential to R1 Residential Zoning. And all we're doing here tonight is authorizing the public hearing, Mr. Morrison.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we advertise for a public hearing.
Second.
Again, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Number 2 is, again, authorizing for a public hearing on a request by Redstone Presbyterian Senior Care. This is for 36.3 acres on Klein Hollow Road from R2 to R3. I have a motion to direct the staff to authorize for a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion
Sorry
that
about
we
that.
go ahead and advertise for public hearing.
I anticipated.
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.
There you go. There you go.
Item number 3 is
I am.
consider a recommendation for a major land development application, SP 322, Olympus Energy, for the construction of an unconventional oil and gas pad, approximately 147 acres. And that's the total site area, I assume, on Logan's Ferry Road.
Yeah,
This is in the oil and gas overlay district. Mr. Sid, you representing us on this item?
I am, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman. Always at your.
I don't have to pay for you, do I?
No, but somebody does.
Somebody does, okay.
Oh, yeah, we do have to pay.
Well, I guess you actually.
We do have to pay.
All right, so I see many familiar faces representing the applicant. Someone want to lead the charge here, sir?
Good evening again. Blaine Lucas on behalf of Olympus Energy. There are a couple items that were either raised previous meetings or brought to my attention by Attorney Siddig that we thought we could address tonight. Now, we did just get to this afternoon a comment email from the acoustical engineer and a letter from your traffic consultant. So I don't know where that's going to leave us in conclude tonight, but at least a couple other items that we wanted to go over. The first item, and I know this had come up and was one of the conditions of the previous approval of the Titan plan that dealt with the timeframes under which Olympus could undertake its various activities. And so we've taken a look at that, and I have a handout here for you where we try to scope out what we think will work here. Somewhat mirrors what was proposed at Titan. So if you don't mind, I'll pass that out now.
Well, we need, oh, good, thank you.
There you go.
So what we're suggesting, again, with Titan, there were time windows placed on when Olympus could do its construction phase, its drilling phase, its completions, hydraulic fracturing phase, and then there was also an overall time limit set forth. Looking at Olympus's schedule and how its activities is rolled out in kind of trying to mirror somewhat comparably what the situation was with Titan. We've handed out what we're suggesting would work from Olympus's perspective here. The construction phase would be the same, a window of 120 days. That's the same as Titan. Now, with the drilling and completions phases, Titan was essentially anticipating 6 wells, 30 days each. We're now, our proposal is to do a total of 8 wells in 2 trips. So what that equates to is a drilling phase of a total of 240 days, a completions phase also of 240 days. And then the Titan condition also put a total time window from the start of commencement of construction of the pad to finishing the work of 3 years. We're suggesting 5. Primarily, there are more wells, plus the 5 years is what the time period is for an ESCGP, or erosion and sediment control approval by DEP. So it kind of matches up. The first part here, the sentence start notwithstanding, that's all cut and paste verbatim, other than the length of the period from the Titan approval. We also are asking our item number 5 that if they're anticipated, that the township could, or that Olympus could request, subject to approval by the chief administrator, extending out some of those dates. So that's what we're suggesting here. Is it's a somewhat mirror, again, slightly longer periods because of more activity. What happened at Titan. Mr. Johnson is here again tonight if there are any specific questions or comments with regard to that.
Just so we understand, the drilling and completion is a total of 480 days.
Yes.
Okay.
That's for 8 wells in 2 different periods of time, right?
It'd be 120 and 120.
So then shouldn't that be more properly identified as 120 days first
Per-
4 wells and 120 days
per
second
phase.
4 wells?
Annie, let's come on up.
Yeah, we want to, because as you know, the Titan was all done at once. We're assuming the construction phase is for everything, so there's only one of those.
Correct.
And then we have to get each phase per, the other phases per 4 and 4, I think, right? So we
Yeah,
gotta break them up.
it's loping in both, kind of lumping it together on both trips there, but yes, the plan is 2 trips, 4 wells apiece on those trips there.
120 days.
Yeah, the 120 and the 120 is what
Okay.
makes up your.
So you don't have a problem with it that more accurately reflecting that?
120 per phase.
Yeah.
No, I don't have an issue with reflecting that. The only thing, and this is something we come to, is if, say you broke it up to 5 and 3 or 4 and 3, that'd be something we would let you guys know.
Okay, maybe we just, please try to use the microphone when you're guys talk and grab it by your hand. Yeah, we just need to clarify this as to,
Yeah, we don't want the administrator to have to figure out how many you used on the first set of wells, 3 or 5 or 4, and then how many you have left. We'd rather, first of all, construction phase is once, it's done.
Yep.
So we can just say that, that's done. Then the other, we understand the 240 might not be exactly 120 and 120, but we do
Right.
want it to be broken into phases. The idea is, and they're consecutive. We're trying to avoid situations where somebody goes through this every month for, 5 days a month, and, they're interrupted. The idea was they're going to be consecutive, you're going to be out of there.
Yeah, we can definitely give you the appropriate breakout on that, based off of what our schedule is.
So when you were doing 6, you're going to do less than 6, why is it 240 still? Or why is it still 120, really?
6 assumed 30 days per well. That was, so the Titan requirement was 180 total. Okay? And we were only
Yeah.
doing 1 trip in and out. But here, because we're doing 8 wells instead of 6, it's 30 times 8. So that's
Excuse me, they
I got
can't
it.
hear you because you're not talking into the microphone, sorry.
Pick it up and hold it in your hand. Probably the best thing to do.
So we're going to make sure there are just 2 of those phases total for this whole site,
Yeah.
totaling not more than 240, and we'll write it up like that.
Right.
We're not going to have 3 or 4 drilling phases.
Well, that's why we use the aggregate. So, I mean,
Yeah, we're going to say aggregate, but there's not more than 2 of them. Right?
okay.
Okay. Got it.
2 phases, 240 days per phase.
No,
120.
120 days per phase,
So they are,
total of 240.
so they're concurrent then. The drilling and the completion phase is 120 days.
No, it's drilling. If you broke it into 2, it would be 120 for the first trip for drilling, followed by 120 for the first trip for
Completion.
hydraulic.
So the total's
fraction.
240
240,
for the first phase, and then 240
yeah,
for the second phase.
Okay,
We'll write it up.
so it makes sense.
So I think basically what I'm hearing from Mr. Sittig is you would just prefer, rather than say drilling phase 240 total, you would rather have it say 120 for trip 1 and 120 for trip 2. Same thing for the completions.
Right.
Okay, okay,
I think what
that works.
And I think the way I'm going to suggest it being written up, and this is just so that we can respond to the public, if they have drilling noise, to say, look, they're only going to be drilling, there are 3 wells, they're only going to be, and it's 50 days in, they're not going to be here more than 40 days. They're going to come back next year on some more, but this piece is going to end. Just predictability.
Yeah, we understand the philosophy there.
So there could be as long as then a 3-year gap between phase 1 and phase 2?
Well, we're proposing 5, but the aggregate from,
Well, you got to be done in 5 years, so if the first phase takes you over a year and a half, or it's going to, if everything goes well, it's 1 year, right? So that means within 3 years, you'll do the second phase.
that's correct.
So you're done
Everything
with
would be done within 5.
Okay. Even if it's 8 consecutive wells.
Okay, I think we beat that to death enough.
It's just more complicated because last time we just had one operation. They were getting in, getting out.
The second item then relates to noise. Some discussions, based on some comments from Mr. Sittig last time, and further discussions with him. He basically requested, tell us specifically what you're requesting as far as the noise waiver. As we've discussed, and I think became evident back during Titan, some of the numbers in the current ordinance are just not feasible. Ambients oftentimes exceed them. So I'm going to hand out now some specific language that we're suggesting, which largely mirrors Titan, and I'll explain a couple of the minor differences.
Yep.
This was basically, we started with the Titan language, and it's identical with 2 exceptions. And what those are, basically what those are is the Titan waiver said don't exceed 10 dBA over the ambient at Titan, which was roughly 58. Okay, so effectively that gave a maximum of roughly 68 decibels. The ambient is lower here. It's 58.51, and so we're proposing essentially the same thing, but an add-on of 10, but that's going to result in a maximum that's roughly 10 decibels less than Titan, just because of the ambient between the two. My understanding is that things have gone fairly smoothly at Titan, and there have not been any noise complaints to Olympus's knowledge so far. The other thing, the other thing Chiton did was allowed for some temporary increases if there were spikes that were very short in duration, and I know Mr. Rosendahl had spoke about that in some more detail last time around with Titan. Then the last component was that the way this is worded is the noise waiver shall only apply to applicants drilling and completion as operations, and that was the same as Titan. Titan also said that the waiver only applied basically at night and weekends. Here, the couple minor exceedances are actually during the daytime. So we struck out the time limitations. So overall, compared with Titan, it's a much lower overall limit, but it doesn't put it allows that waiver, that plus 10 to apply 24/7, not just at night. So those are the, that's what we're suggesting here, since it seemed to be working at Titan. Mr. Rosenthal's here, if Mr. Sittig or the board has any questions about what we're suggesting here.
Well, the only question I would have is, you can exceed it for these number of minutes. Take the 10 dBA, can only occur 5 minutes out of any given hour, correct?
Paige, why don't you come up?
So if it goes on every hour for 24 times a day,
5 times
that's not
24.
exactly good either.
We don't anticipate the general operations to cause exceedances over the 10 decibel waiver ask. The sound levels that we have predicted are all of the noises that are going to be produced, like the major noise producers, so giant engines that are really loud, and they run pretty much consistently. So that's like kind of the maximum produced level of noise that's going to be coming from the pad at any given time. That's what we have predicted, with the software. So with kind of the spikes are normally close to a microphone. The microphone is normally not close to the operation itself. So spikes generally are going to be related to something happening nearby the microphone. So say the microphone is at your house and the well pad is 1,000 feet away. There's going to be exceedances constantly. Like if I showed you data of any well pad, theirs or others, there's always exceedances. The exceedances aren't operations related because just living happens. You drive by it and it goes up. It goes over the limit. So the exceedances, the threshold, we don't anticipate it from the operations noise to exceed the levels that we predicted.
What, excuse me, what level do you, what are the maximum levels of decibels do you expect?
It depends on where. I mean, it depends on where.
Is your question?
Well, you're saying, you're asking for a waiver above 58.51, correct?
Right.
Well, what levels do you expect?
So
Is it 70, is it 80, is it 90? What kind of levels do you expect?
at receiver 1, which is the surface owner, that's the highest level predicted during completions. It's actually the highest level during all, but completions is typically the loudest. We are predicting the sound levels to be at 52.3 decibels. So
50 to 100. Is that what you said?
52.3.
2.3.
Oh, 52.3, okay. Well, my hearing aids don't work well.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
No problem.
you'll have no problem
And
with
it's
noise.
called three-way communication, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and all these numbers are in the sound impact assessment that was with the application too. But as Tage points out, that's the highest anticipated number, and it's actually at the surface owner's house.
Did the previous waiver include this caveat about it's only, you can exceed it cumulatively for only 1 hour?
Yeah, it's identical.
It's identical? Okay.
Yeah, again, I think what Tage is suggesting, we don't even anticipate that's going to happen, right?
No, we were trying to cover, these are averages, right? When you do the average, and we were trying to also, it's the peaks that people hear that will wake them up. So we were saying, okay, even though there's going to be a peak and you still meet the average, it's still too loud. So we were also trying to push down on the peaks.
Yeah, and my only point is, if you have a peak every hour, exceedance every hour,
24 times 5.
yeah,
The data's pretty consistent. Like I said, you can look at a graph of it, and it's pretty linear when they're in stage and operating. The spikes, like I said, are typically going to be something that's not related to the operation.
okay.
And I'd point out, we've seen a lot of municipal ordinances out there that directly address sound as it relates to oil and gas, as opposed to your ordinances, which is more general. And this spike language is, we see this in, I've seen this in several dozen ordinances, so it's fairly common.
So one of the things I mentioned, Blaine, was to compare, since generally we think, and to my knowledge anyway, there weren't any noise complaints on Titan. Would like comparisons of distances, maybe elevation, if you could compare the conditions to say, these conditions are even better. For example, I thought with the waivers that you got, the closest residences are further away on Hermes than Titan. So I don't know. So if you can give us an apples to apples comparison, what does this noise level mean to this site? For example, I don't know if the elevation means any different if you have homes that may be.
It's included in this. So the software takes that into account. So I mean, that's one of the biggest things that affects noise propagation is elevation. So we do take that into account when we create these. And as far as comparatively to Titan, we've got lots of data that I could pull from specific periods and kind of give you an actual and show you kind of this is what we saw. And you'll see the spiking, which has nothing to do with.
I'm just thinking from a layman's standpoint, Tage, whenever you're saying the homes that are closest to this site versus the homes that were closest to Titan.
Further away.
Yeah. Are you expecting even less
Yeah,
impact?
they generally are. I think the closest at Titan was 800 feet.
Yeah, and that was, I think, the horse farm was right across the street.
Yeah.
And here,
So is this a favorable, because, the noise isn't related to that, the measurement. So the receptors, is this likely to be less impactful just because of the conditions around the pad?
I think you'll find that in the study it indicates that I think the closest home here is.
I want to say 1,300 feet, but
Well, see if you can, pin that down to give some comfort level.
Yeah,
Because if Titan worked and this is going to be better, then we have a comfort level. If Titan worked, but this is going to be.
Propagation standpoint,
Yeah.
in general, it would be. Noise doesn't generally get louder as you get further away.
Right.
There are some instances where, elevation and some other things can, affect that. But in general, yes, that's going to be true.
These were modeled after diesel,
These were modeled with diesel.
and what's the intended use there? We haven't had any complaints because you're using electric.
Yeah, the intent would be to use a quiet fleet. Obviously, sometimes conditions or things warrant, and that wouldn't be available, but our full intent is to keep our quiet fleet moving.
I'll just kind of give you a little bit of an orientation. What I've handed out is an excerpt from the sound impact assessment. And Tage can explain it in technical terms. I'll try to do it in layman's terms. That basically this is, you see all the monitoring point or the receptor points that are projected in R1, which is the closest and immediately north, pretty much immediately north of the pad. That's the surface owner's house, okay? Then you can see the locations fade away from that. And again, having worked with Mr. Rosendahl in the past, I think, the computer program gets pretty technical, but big factors are distance and terrain. So that's why you see, the propagated there. And the purple and the dark red, those are the areas that would, the acoustical controls projecting would have the highest sound levels, and then it fades off from there.
So which of these have waivers?
What's that?
Which of these have waivers that on this map? Are they shown? Homes?
These-
You actually got homeowner waivers for the noise limit.
Oh, well, no, the waivers were for setbacks for R24 and R25. So no one was addressing sound at that point.
Well, we understand, but those are the people, if they're okay with the proximity, then they're gonna get more noise.
One would assume, yeah. And they're
The
basically,
closest one is one, really,
Right.
of those that.
that's the surface owner.
And the data here that you're offering is considering you have a 32-foot wall around the perimeter.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I think that's the point. It looks like it's probably number 3, R3, that's the most proximate. And that's probably a lot further, most proximate of those, signed on people. And that's probably a lot further than the closest to Titan.
You're seeing there the projected, and this is during completions. These numbers are higher than the numbers you will see for either vertical or horizontal drilling, okay? And if you look at the sound impact assessment, you'll see that, but even for receptor 3, it's 51.4 is the highest.
How do these values on this colorful sheet relate to the 15 minutes and the 5 minutes that was on a previous sheet? Do you expect these for that amount of time, or do you expect higher decibels for that amount of time?
This is the sound that we expect to be propagated on these receptors by the operation. So we don't expect the sound levels to be higher than that. This is the sound level that we expect the receivers to be getting from the operation.
That's normal, steady state operations.
Yep. Now, there are, like I said, instances where things closer. I mean, every time a car drives by, those sound levels are going to be higher than this. Dog barks, gunshot, airplane. I mean, there's all kinds of things that, constantly happen that are going to have sound levels much higher than what we're predicting here. But we're predicting the sound level from just the operation as it's propagated physically the terrain at these receivers will be these numbers.
Okay.
So in other words,
and that's essentially 80 or 90% of the day.
Yeah, I mean, they run 24/7.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, there are times when, they stop activity, but.
Okay, thank you.
Are you gonna have monitors then at R2 and R3?
Well, I think we would work with the municipality as to where you wanted to put the monitors. There are 3 at Titan, I believe. And that was one of the conditions of Titan.
So these peaks are really not, you're not saying they're attributable to this operation. It's the
Like in
car,
general.
airplane, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, so it's one of those things that, like Blaine mentioned, they're common in a lot of these ordinances. And they would provide a slight buffer in the event there's something on the location that does cause a slight increase.
Okay. All right. Lane, where are you going now?
I'd like to make one comment for the public that's watching. When I buy a dishwasher, the first thing I look at is the decibels.
Sure.
And just so people understand what 50 decibels sounds like, I buy a dishwasher that's 48 or less. And that's a very quiet dishwasher. Old dishwashers that were pretty loud were like 60. So that kind of just puts into perspective for people what 48 decibels is. It's pretty quiet. So that's all.
And I think Mr. Rosendahl in his report had a list of kind of standard sound levels that, what would 50 equate to?
Just a quiet street. 60 is a normal conversation. Something that, that I like to talk about, it's not on that list. Like a window unit for an air conditioner. I lived in the city for a period, and I'm a noise guy, so my wife needed it to sleep, and so I was like, this thing is loud. So I monitored it, and it was, 65 to 68 decibels, depending on how hard it was running. And that's in your bedroom, so kind of something that we've all probably been exposed to.
So these are levels somebody would have out in their yard. This is not what they would be in their bedroom sleeping.
No, unless they have a window unit or a fan running or a sleep machine or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, from the operations here. When they're in their home, they're not going to be able to basically hear it.
Generally, no.
I mean, your noise projections are at a receptor point outside, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if
So
that's your question,
there's
Bill.
not the noise reduction from the system itself.
Yeah, just again, for the public, and to Jane's point, it's not the dishwasher in your home, right? It's out in your yard.
Yes.
It's like the dishwasher was out in your yard at 50 decibels.
And if your dishwasher's running in the house, or you have something running, if you have a window unit, you're likely, that noise is going to be louder than this noise, and it will subsume the noise produced from the well pad.
Now, any other questions? Just one other point on sound.
Yeah, I just want to make the point, these are really for people to enjoy the use of their outdoors as much as anything.
Right.
Indoors, these are going to be really, really low. So, not that people don't sleep with their windows open and in the summer, that, that's an imposition. It's not to minimize it, but these are out in the open, out in the yard with all the other outdoor noises.
Now, just one last comment on noise. Your acoustical consultant provided a comment letter before the last meeting. Mr. Rosendahl addressed that orally at the meeting and then followed that up with a letter. We just got today a short email comment. Sounds to me like we're probably not going to get concluded tonight. If we don't, Tage can certainly respond in writing. But the primary comment dealt with these other weird peak and maximum and peak and tonal frequencies. And the only comment there was regarding those items, is compliance monitoring something that only occurs once the project is completed? If so, waiting until compliance monitoring to address whether or not those have been met seems risky. We want to know these values as soon as possible. Well, there will be compliance monitoring. That was one of the conditions of Titan, so that will take place. So I don't know whether there's much need or whether the commission has much more way, because you probably haven't seen or just got this email anyway. But our basic response is Titan, it was a requirement of Titan that there be compliance monitoring, and we acknowledge that's going to be the case here too. That's it.
Thank you.
Just shifting to roads, there's been a dialogue back and forth with your traffic engineer. There was an update to the traffic study to reflect that water was going to be piped. There was a letter from Mr. Gooley back to the municipality responding to some comments. That was back on August 8th. We just got this afternoon a response back from your traffic consultant. Under the circumstances, we'd love you to act on it tonight, but if you think you need more time and would like us to respond to it, we can do that. However, while we're here, if the commission does have any questions or additional comments about the haul route and the traffic issues, we have Mr. Gooley here tonight, and he could certainly respond.
I think it would be worthwhile just going through comments. I can bring up Google Earth to help with identification of some of the roads. This gets confusing out here. This is 286. This is what's referenced to as 4057 in the comments, and this is 380. For reference, this is, I think this is the Respironics here. And
That's the church, I think.
this is the short piece of Logan's Ferry here, which I believe has 8 residents on it. Is that correct? 8 or 7? Short stint of Logan's there.
Yeah, I think it was 7.
So that's the general layout there.
Okay, so what was intended? And
There you go.
So we had two haul routes in. We had coming from 22, we had coming up this direction, making a left, coming down here, and then making the right on Logan's Ferry to go up to the site. We also had a route coming in from 366 that would come up this way, make the right, traverse here, make the right on Logan Ferry. Exiting, anyone that was going up to 366 would come down through this stretch of Logan Ferry, make the left, continue up to 366. Anyone destined for back down to 22 would come down, make this left, and then make this maneuver here.
What are the planned improvements to Logan Ferry?
So the intersection of Logan Ferry and 380, 400 would be to widen this bend here at the intersection to allow for the vehicles to make this right turn without crossing the center line of, let's call it exiting vehicles on Logan Ferry.
And since the last meeting, Olympus has acquired that property on the corner.
okay.
And what about improvements to Logan Ferry?
So last time when I testified, we had planned on FDRing the full depth reclamation.
Backtrack, what's the FDR mean?
So basically what would happen is a big grinder would come in, grind up the entire road. We would mix cement in, basically then put down a cement layer for a base.
Show us which road you're talking about.
So it would be
doing that.
Logan, it was Logan Ferry,
All the way up to the site.
all the way up past the site.
Okay.
So that was the plan. Our geotechnical group went out and obtained test pit data. So that's where they basically go out, dig through the pavement material, and then get the subbase material, analyze the material, and they determined that due to the subgrade material, this would not be a very good candidate for FDR. Due to the subgrade material, it would create a brittle sublayer with the cement. So therefore, now we're proposing to mill 4 inches of pavement off of Logan Ferry and replace it with 4 inches of pavement.
Asphalt paving.
Asphalt pavement, correct.
That is part of a access maintenance agreement with the municipality. Olympus would be obligated to
You got to
maintain that.
speak into the microphone.
Olympus would be obligated to maintain the quality of that road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And bring it up to the same standard post-development?
Correct.
So your geotech people were saying that the base of that road's no good.
They're saying that when we go to mix it for the FDR process, that it would not create the structural, and I'm not a geotechnical engineer, but that it would not create a structural strength because of the material in the subbase that we could achieve with milling 4 inches and putting 4 inches of bituminous material down. Correct.
So would that be a combination of BCBC and wearing course, or 4 inches of wearing course?
It would probably be a combination. BCBC and wearing course. We wouldn't put 4 inches of wearing down now.
Do we have this in writing somewhere? Your geotechnical?
As part of the resubmission, the geotechnical analysis was included, yes.
I have a question. When the trucks are going to leave and they're going to go that way, this intersection right down here by the Christ Lutheran Church, when that truck's going to make a left turn, how many lanes of travel is right there? Is it 1 lane in each direction?
No, I believe there is
A turning lane.
yeah, but there's a turning lane here. So he would be crossing 3, I believe.
No, go back down. Down?
Getting there.
Okay, but here's my point. No. So, traffic that's going toward out 380, what direction is that? North?
Towards New Ken.
Toward New Ken. There's a travel lane, and when that truck goes to turn left, he does not have a lane to turn in. Correct?
You would be turning into the through lane.
That's my point. He would be turning into the through lane.
Correct.
Okay, now go up to the other intersection up by the camper sales.
Further.
No further. Go on up there. Okay, now zero in on that. Up, nope. Up there. Keep going.
Patience.
Keep going. Okay, right there. Okay, here's my point. The traffic that's on 286, you see the yellow stripes? The travel traffic is moved over to the right side. There are 2 lanes up there where those trucks can pull out safely into their own lane, and the travel lane is up to the right. So I would think that that would be a safer way for those trucks to make a left turn. There's 2 lanes, one of them is for him to turn in.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. If you look here, there's a sight distance issue for vehicles sitting here looking back this direction due to the vertical curve here under the bridge. And the sight distance is really limited. And I think that's part of the study, and I think that was part of TPD's comments of the crash history at this intersection. And I believe that, and that was initially why we did not want anybody coming out making a left here, due to the sight distance issues, due to the vehicular speed of coming up over that crest and then going down the hill.
But they're in their own lane. They're not going to be in the lane your truck's
In
going to
the
turn
travel
into.
lane.
Assuming that a truck driver might not come out and,
Well, I'm just saying that I would think it would be safer for the truck drivers if they were instructed, you have your own lane, and the cars are going to be in this lane.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
But again, like I said, I think the study shows that there is a history of accidents at this intersection.
Okay.
That intersection and the intersection down below were both determined to be failing intersections by TPD, is that correct?
I don't believe they were failing. The 2 that there were approaches that had issues were this intersection, I believe.
But that warranted a traffic signal.
This intersection, as it is today, warrants a traffic signal, correct? In the peak hour.
Yeah,
That is
that's
correct.
not a fun left turn to try to.
No.
No, it's not.
You're better off making a left turn on Logan, right off of Logan Ferry, even though it's one lane, because you can actually see the traffic.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Have you given any thought to a temporary signal there while you're moving trucks through there?
We had not until, I saw the comments from TPD. I mean, it's surely something we could
I think
look at.
that's something worth looking at, is controlling that intersection with a light, at least temporarily. That is a terrible intersection. You can't get across,
No.
head north on 380 there. Cannot. And if you have trucks sitting there, it's just going to complicate it.
Yeah, I think both those intersections for big trucks making a left turn, it just scares me. So I think whichever intersection you choose to use, I think a temporary signal might be in order.
Amen.
Yeah, and I think you'd be better off down at Logan's Ferry rather than this intersection, 'cause that is very bad pulling out. Comment on the accident history. I'm not sure, when they look at the history, how much is at this intersection and how much is down at the intersection to the Sardis Mall down there.
Well, they said there was 8 accidents, I think, in 5 years at that intersection.
Correct.
Was it at that intersection? Or
Yeah,
that
the way that we're able to view the crash history is in PennDOT's system. It gives us the segment and offset of the reported crash, so that gives us a pretty good location of exactly where that crash was reported at.
Okay.
Okay.
Does the Logan Ferry meet warrants, the intersection,
Signal warrants? It does not.
even with your trips?
Correct. And again, since we've redone the study with the piping of the water, as I talked last time, the trips associated with this phase greatly reduce.
I think that, the movement of equipment in and out of there can be handled flagging.
Yeah.
And that's temporary. But sand trucks going in and out of there 24 hours a day, there needs to be some control at that intersection.
I agree.
Where's the sand coming from, do you know at this point? So you don't know whether it's coming up 286 or down 380?
Okay, so we've got some traffic comments you have to respond to, and we've got to have a little bit of dialogue back and forth between the consultants to come to an agreement on that.
Yeah, just, you may have mentioned this, I don't remember it. If they were restricted to left in, right out, you weren't going to come from New Kent at all. You're going to have to pass the site and do a turnaround somewhere. Is there somewhere?
I'm not following you.
So that we don't make any lefts out of the site, either intersection. You make a right and then you do a turnaround and come back. You would go back and loop. What would be their option to make a right, turn around?
There is none.
I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. The next red light is a residential intersection. Then the next red light is Shop and Save on 286. They're going to have to make a left turn if they're going in that direction. And that was my concern.
Yeah, the only other
With one lane of traffic.
The only other alternative is to go all the way back on 366 and come up over the hill on Old Leechburg Road or something, and then hit Logan's Ferry and come out. But you're still making, if you use that, you're still making a left-hand turn movement out of the site somewhere.
Right.
Well, at this point, traffic planning design made a recommendation not to accept the traffic recommendations of Schaefer-Stahl at this point, or Stahl-Schaefer.
Well, why don't the two consultants get together and figure out something that they can agree to, so that we have a clear path and the administration agrees to it.
So I think you're hearing pretty loud and clear, without some other mitigation measures, left turns in either intersection. And I understand legally where you are off-site, site distance and all that. I'm going to have to advise them and they're going to do that, but there's discomfort making those lefts with these conditions, period.
Okay. So our next meeting's
The 11th.
the 11th of September.
Or no, I'm sorry, it's the 13th. I'm thinking October. It's the 13th of September.
Well, there should be enough time there for everybody to get this worked out as to what their opinions are, and to try to get some sort of a consensus. It seems like there is a bunch of conditions that are going to be put on this approval if it's approved. So
Need that list.
could we have that, could everybody work together so that we have a list of conditions so we know what we're recommending?
I think what we've heard, subject to working out traffic, we're pretty much going to be able to mimic the Titan.
I think in most instances that's true. There may be obviously some geography differences and the like, but I think the bulk of the Titan conditions, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Olympus would find acceptable.
Yeah, I just don't want to be debating whether we're going to have 4 sound receivers or 6 or 3 or 2 or what. It should all be worked out ahead of time.
So planning doesn't have an issue with the short stretch of Logan's Ferry there as access to the site.
Well,
Neither one of them is perfect, but
It's currently a 20-foot width road. and that's what they propose. Pave, I assume.
What's the municipality require if it was a new road, 24?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought you had recommended taking it to 22.
We would be putting back whatever width is out there. We're not proposing to
Well, when
widen.
you were doing full depth
or
reclamation,
reduce.
I thought you were taking it to 22.
Again, we would have matched whatever was out there is what we would.
What's out there now is a little narrow.
Is that a sand truck route?
That would be an exiting truck route, correct? So yeah,
Alright.
we would not be running bi-directional on Logan Ferry. It would only be coming, as it's proposed now, it would only be an outbound maneuver.
Doesn't matter where the sand comes from,
Correct.
it would
There aren't
only
going to be two sand trucks passing each other on this road.
On that stretch, no. Correct.
and you're still working out the water end of things. You're gonna pipe water in, so that's not an issue, it's just
pipe fresh water from truck reuse.
from over in Plum.
We haven't even talked about that yet. Reused water. We'd like to have an idea how many trips that's going to be.
That's in the the updated traffic study. That's all in there.
Can you recite what it says? And are you going to be moving water and sand at the same time on that short stretch?
Wait a minute, what are you talking about, water? They're gonna pipe the water.
No,
No, they're not. They're not
Reused
piping all of it. They're going to be hauling reused water in there.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware of that, I thought you were piping all fresh water in.
Well, all fresh water is piped, but there'll
In.
be some reused water coming in and going back out.
Okay.
But
Oh, probably from Penn Township, huh? So where's it going to come from, the reused water, Penn Township?
It come from our areas that we operate in. And anything we have water sharing agreement.
Or it could be Upper Borough or Penn Township, not Elizabeth. That too, so anywhere. And they would be directed to go over the haul routes.
So we have, we're showing there are 85 trucks per day for recycled water.
so what does that work out to?
It equates to roughly like 6 trucks, 3 entering and 3 exiting in a peak hour.
I don't know, are the sand trucks and reusable water going to be on the road at the same time?
Yeah, they would, that those operations, sand and water would move. But again, on that short stretch of Logan's Ferry there, you're not going in bi-directionally at that point.
So at no time will a sand truck or a reused water truck pass on the short stretch of Logan Ferry?
Correct. That's our exit. That's our exit point there. And we've done this successfully in our other operating areas as well. And, even making that left-hand turn would be well within, other areas that we've operated in too.
Okay,
Blaine, if you could take the section of Logan's Ferry all the way up to the site, we'd like to know minimum widths there. We know in the Titan site, we had some narrow sections of roadway. And whenever you have the trucks, now admittedly, those were oftentimes around curves, but, if, it looks like it's uneven at points, so you have some narrower parts. So we'd like to know.
So our study shows that the short stretch of Logan's Ferry, or Logan Ferry, is roughly 10 feet for each lane, so 20 feet wide.
But is that on average or is that minimum?
That would have been on average. I mean, we can surely look in and pull a minimum on both stretches.
What's the average on the Plum side of Logan's Ferry?
We don't have the average, but on the Plum side, we're showing basically the same thing, 10 and 10, so 20 feet.
So you will have conflicts there with trucks.
Correct, and I believe as part of one of TPD's comments, they questioned trucks, I believe it was this curve here possibly, and we showed an auto turn having two sand trucks that were able to pass concurrently and stay within their lanes without any conflict.
How wide is a sand truck?
Yeah, it's just a normal,
8 foot.
semi truck, 8 feet without your mirrors.
Okay, anything else on this?
I'm gonna just tell you where we're going with it. We're gonna want it 20 feet minimum, so. You're gonna have to widen parts or, make sure it's evened out. It's just gonna be a high volume on there, and you don't want any wiggling around. You want even lanes.
8.5 for a tractor trailer.
Without the mirrors. Is that with mirrors?
Let's see.
That's with mirrors.
Recap, I think, operational timeframes, I think we have pretty much fleshed that out. On the sound, I think we're close on that, but did you want some information comparison information from Titan? I think maybe we've addressed that, but we'll go back and take a look at that too. And then, obviously, Mr. Gooley will respond to, and your suggestion, I think it would make sense to have the engineers huddle on these issues and address the ones that have been brought up in the last 10, 15 minutes.
Okay,
Make Mr. Mudry happy.
all right.
Well, just overall, just the impression is, we had a lot of challenges on Titan. There was a lot more money spent.
With mirrors. 9.
Solving this truck problem, and the water problem's largely solved. We want you to put some resources into making this. Just one bad accident here without people being diligent is, it's catastrophic with the truck. So we want to focus on this. We want you to put some resources into the width of that road and those left turns.
Anything else, Bill? Jim?
No.
Okay, thank you.
See you next month.
Do we have to vote?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Morrison, how are we doing on time for this? Do we have a waiver?
I got a waiver, yes. You only gave me for the land development, though. Conditional use. They're online. They're fillable PFD, or PDFs, I'm sorry.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes, sir.
could we have our technical people come up with a better solution than this one microphone deal that has to be passed around and
I
everybody
can fix that
forgets?
right now.
Huh?
I can fix that right now.
I don't think that's quite the solution.
You have twice what you had before, Bob.
Yeah, but that's not going to work. Okay, next item on the agenda is
Run investments.
Bushy Run Investments, SP 422, Fusting Executive Park for construction of an 80,000 square foot office building and a 36,000 square foot retail center. This is at Wilson and Manor Road.
You see this?
Oh, because we got a microphone sitting on it.
My name is Ray Gusty from Farringham McCarty Gray.
Got to use one of those microphones.
Not
You
here.
can have one in each hand.
My name is Ray Gusty from Farringham McCarty Gray. Also here tonight is Greg Fusting, the owner and developer of the property, and Josh Haydu, from the traffic engineer from Wooster and Associates. So back in April of 2019, the Planning Commission approved the Fusting Executive Park Master Plan. And in May of 2019, Council approved the master plan. Phase 1 is which is over here. This is Wilson Road, Manor Road, about 22. Bacon Ridge Villas is located on the east side. That's currently Phase 1 and under construction. Phase 2 is the DNA office building and the retail center. So the DNA office building actually matches the approved master plan. There were some minor refinements done with the grading and utilities as we got more detailed with the land development plans. It's a proposed 80,000 square foot office building with the required parking spaces. Stormwater will be controlled with the detention basin located here. And 2 underground detention systems are not shown on the drawing, but there'll be an underground detention system near the deck hockey and an underground detention system under this parking area here. The recreation area includes a deck hockey, a basketball court, volleyball court, and putting green. And this is for the DNA employees only. It's not open to the public. The retail, again, matches what was approved on the master plan. The one change we had was we dropped the retail space on the east end and added a second restaurant. So there's a bookend restaurant on each end of the retail center. Stormwater is controlled with the underground detention system on the west side of this parking lot. In addition to, for this phase 2, we're going to grade out parcel 2, which is the restaurant pad, and parcel 1, the future sports medicine building. We grade those out for 2 buildable pads and run utilities to each one. We know we are aware that we would have to come back in the future for final approval for whatever goes into each one of those parcels. Also have some building elevations. The architect actually came down with COVID and couldn't make it today, but it's a lot of, it's 3 stories. You can see there's a lot of glass to it. I'm not sure what the panels were going to be yet. They could be like a precast concrete panel or some type of metal panel. I'm not sure at this point yet, but this gives you a rough idea. A lot of curves to it. Gives you an idea of what it would look like. And I think that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions, we'll try and answer them for you.
I don't think that'll meet the glazing requirements, will it? Did you have any, I'm kidding. Did you have any architecturals on the retail?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay, we have some traffic issues. What's before us tonight is merely just to accept the application.
That's correct.
But well, since we have a traffic engineer here, why don't we just kind of go through that briefly as to what we're doing, so the Planning Commission is aware of the issues.
I'm Josh Hader with David E. Worcester & Associates, the traffic consultant. Jim, may I borrow your pointer?
Sure. Where the hell to go? Oh, there it is.
Okay, very good. So we have conducted a traffic study. It is currently under review by the Department of Transportation. They reviewed it previously and approved it. There were some minor changes that arose, between, the past couple of years as the project has made its way through the process. So that study is back into the department for a second final approval. There are a number of traffic-related improvements that are going to be completed as part of this project. First of those being from Manor Road, turning onto Wilson Road, there will be a left turn lane, an exclusive left turn lane to allow that movement. And
On Manor Road.
on Manor Road.
Okay.
And in the opposite direction, because widening is going to be necessary to do that anyway, we'll also be putting in a short left turn lane into the Chevrolet access that is directly opposite of Wilson Road. So there will be, opposing left turn lanes on Manor Road, one going onto Wilson, one going into the Chevy dealership. In addition, with the widening that's taking place in this portion of Manor Road, it allows us the opportunity to extend the existing left turn lane on Manor Road going on to 22. So this left turn lane that allows this movement will be extended, basically just to take up all the space that we're creating between these two roads. So that turn lane will get about 50 feet longer. And then finally, traffic signal will be installed at the location of Manor Road and Wilson Road. So that is the proposed mitigation strategy. It mitigates the impacts associated with the development. We, again,
What are we doing on Wilson Road?
On Wilson Road, there are no proposed improvements. We evaluated turn lane warrants into the accesses and determined that they are not anticipated to be met. At some time in the future, it's possible that a left turn lane may be warranted into the, not the townhome side, that's never going to be warranted, but possibly into the DNA side. The study doesn't conclude that that's going to be the case, but it's something that we'd be
How many parking
willing to
spaces?
look at in the future.
How many parking spaces are in the DNA side?
Right?
I'm not sure the exact number, was over 500.
So you anticipate 350, 450 cars, and you don't think you're going to need a left turn lane on Wilson Road?
That is driven by, so the turn lane warrants are driven by a number of factors. The volume of left turns, obviously there are going to be a lot of people turning left into that site because the majority of people are going to be coming from 22. But the other factor in the turn lane warrants is the amount of opposing traffic, which there are just simply not very many people coming down Wilson Road. So by and large, people traveling northbound on Wilson turning left, although they have to yield to oncoming traffic, there's not a whole lot of oncoming traffic to yield to. So that's why the turn lane isn't recommended.
So the turn lane would only be recommended if the traffic increases on the northbound or southbound Wilson Road.
Correct.
How far are the two entrances apart from the business park and the residential side?
I believe it's 125 feet.
Did that come up at all during any of the traffic reviews, the closeness of those two intersections?
It did not. I believe that was planned that way in accordance with the ordinance requirements, that be the spacing. I'm not aware of, I'm only privy to the traffic side of things. It did not come up as a comment from the traffic engineer. Department of Transportation did not comment on it because Wilson Road is not a state road.
Right.
If you put a traffic light in, is there some coordination with the traffic light on 22, or how's that going to be handled?
It's possible. We analyzed it as a standalone signal, not requiring coordination. But we'll see what the department says. That's a recommendation that may come from the department.
Is it a smart light, or is it just a time?
As it's at this stage in the design, it's just a timed. It will have sensors. It's not pre-timed. It will have detectors in the road or radar sensors that detect when the vehicles are there. So it is smart in that sense.
I think the municipality's preference would be that it be part of the adaptive system.
Any changes to 22?
No, except for the turn lane from Manor coming on to 22. But there were no impacts identified on Route 22.
Okay.
The existing turn lanes are of adequate length to accommodate the additional traffic, and no new lanes are warranted.
When do you expect to hear back from the PennDOTers?
The study was submitted on August 5th. They have a 30-day window. They tend to use most of it. So first or second week of September with the Labor Day holiday.
Okay.
They were briefed ahead of time. So some time passed between the initial approval and what's happening now. So did meet with them and explain, what is happening, what's now being proposed, what has changed. So they are aware of it. We're optimistic that we'll get a favorable review, but we won't know for sure until beginning of September.
Okay, and when would this, what's before us tonight is merely the acceptance of the application, so we've already had a public hearing on this.
The master plan was approved back in 2019. These uses are permitted uses within the B district.
How about major excavation?
You can do that.
I don't know if we can do it. I'm just asking, is that?
It needs done.
It needs done because has it been
We'll do
applied
it,
for?
yeah, we'll run them concurrently.
Okay. But we have to have a public hearing on it. That's my point, which can throw delays into things.
What's the normal workflow in this operation? I mean, do you have the bulk of the employees arriving between a certain time and departing between a certain time, or is it kind of throughout the whole day, or how does that work?
We work 8 to 4. We do have 3 shifts, but the bulk of our employees work from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. On the weekends, there's very few, maybe a handful of employees that work on Saturdays or Sundays.
I'm just wondering about, having peak load coming into these left turn lanes. Is the left turn lane long enough? Do you have enough of a queue to handle the cars?
The land uses and the assumptions utilized in the study are consistent with the site's operation, so that is all accounted for. It assumes, the traffic projections assume that, large arrivals during certain periods of the day, between 7 and 9 a.m., 4 to 6 p.m., obviously less traffic on the weekends. And then the other uses, the retail uses, those are all accounted for also. So the hour-by-hour loading is all accounted for in the study, and the results were all favorable in terms of the capacity and the stacking analysis.
Okay. All right. So
there's a number of balls in the air here as far as the traffic improvements are concerned and the approvals from PennDOT. So it may be required to have a time waiver depending on the timing of PennDOT.
Okay. Well, all we're doing tonight is accepting the application.
I'll make a motion that we accept the application.
Second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll see you on, hopefully in September, what was it? 13th. Okay, thank you. Mr. Morrison, anything for the good of the cause?
Pack a lunch for September.
Okay.
Had an inquiry from Raising Cane.
From who?
Raising Cane.
And what, is it a sugar cane operation? What
No,
kind of
apparently it's a chicken.
Food, I saw it.
It's a what?
The fast food chain, chicken tenders and special sauces. They're heading east from the
Why don't they
Midwest.
just go into Mr. Fusting's development?
Yeah,
and we don't
maybe,
have-
huh?
Look at that. Perfect timing.
Little lady here, she want to speak to us?
I don't know. Ma'am, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I don't. I'm listening.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Good to see me.
Okay. All right, so nothing else for the good of the cause this evening?
2 public hearings next meeting.
2 public hearings?
Crematory and AMD.
No, okay. All right. Have a motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Watch this thing, how crazy it is.
I know, yeah, he's got,